G'day folks, I'm Scott,
And I'm Fraser.
and today we're going to be talking about why your favourite single player game probably has a shit health system. Now, to tackle this question, we first have to define what recharging health is.
Health recharging in video games is the way in which the player is able to recover health in any way. In the article Health Systems in Video Games by Marin Madunik on Sapphire Nation, he goes over many different recharging health mechanics such as medkits, regenerating health, the mix of both of these, and limb-based health systems. These mechanics are used to bring you a satisfying experience, where enjoyment in the game is found through interacting with it in the way that the game wants you to interact with it. Yeah, right. As we started to look into the different ways developers use their health systems, we found that very little single-player games actually had a deviating health system from the norm of health packs littered around the map or health regeneration, which in some circumstances was detrimental to their games. This isn't to say that these health systems are poor, just that they don't feel like they're seriously considered, which is explained to more effect in the video by Welfare Warriors on YouTube, The Sins of Gaming, Regenerating Health. He describes how there are no bad mechanics, and it's just how they are handled that leads to them hurting overall gameplay. While this is a very biased video focusing on multiplayer, painting regenerating health in a negative light, it does raise valid points on the matters it covers in regards to single-player games too.
Regenerating health makes it easier for encounters to be balanced, as the developers will always know how much health a player will have when they reach a specific encounter. This allows the developer to focus their attention on other parts of the game, either improving other mechanics, adding new mechanics, or focusing on the story. For many single-player games, a good narrative story is essential, even when one of the main engagements with the game is combat. Without the combat, the player could lose interest with the game, and the game may be much shorter than desired. IntraAttack out echoed some of these sentiments in his YouTube video, How Health Systems in Games Influence Your Behaviour, Why Health Mechanics Matter, stating that he believes that some developers don't fully consider the impact of a specific kind of health recharge system. He continues that when used correctly, a health system will fuel the gameplay and the fun a player has, while a badly designed system will disengage the player. He also mentions that regenerating health can be seen as removing the punishment for making a mistake, making a game more casual. This can be a specific design situation though, where the developer is trying to open their game up to a wider market who want to enjoy the story.
Some games that focus on story elements by implementing regenerating health systems are Call of Duty Black Ops, published by Activision in 2010, or COD from now on, and Uncharted 4, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment in 2016. Both games' single-player experiences are narrative-driven shooters, and from then, I want to look at the prison breakout scenes in both games. In this part of COD, gameplay-wise, you are just stabbing, shooting, and blowing up enemies with various weaponry and riding vehicles towards the end. Story-wise though, you are breaking out of Vorkuta with thousands of prisoners of war united for one single aim: freedom. The situation is made profound as well through the dialogue throughout the section. Prisoners are chanting together, chanting the plan for their freedom, and the strongest scene in this part, in my experience, is when our American protagonist is questioned by another prisoner, to which our Russian friend Reznov says this:
He and us are not so different. We are all soldiers without an army, betrayed, forgotten, abandoned. In Vorkuta, we are all brothers.
This scene works so well because of the decision to use regenerating health in order to make you care less about gameplay and more on the story it wanted to make you feel. Switching to Uncharted's prison break scene, it begins after a guard is killed, and now, having to escape from the compound, Nathan Drake, his brother Sam, and Rafe duck into nooks and crannies, into vents and onto rooftops to make their way to freedom the way thieves would, all whilst being gunned down by the prison guards. In this scene, much like the COD example, by allowing this story to take a more central role through health regeneration, it was made more impactful by removing the worry of actually dying in these scenes. The problem with these, however, is that even though they focus on being narrative-driven shooters, they fail in the shooter part. Enemies will just stand around shooting at you. You'll stand behind a wall, and being shot at doesn't matter anymore. It also gives you too much time to think instead of act during these times, when you're supposed to be acting, which can completely take you out of the story. This situation causes too many possibilities for problems for all players, and can dramatically affect the way in which the player feels the story. In this sense, I think that regenerating health wasn't a system that should have been put in these games necessarily, and that maybe they would have been better with something else. While we currently have no ideas about what it could be replaced with, we feel more testing should be done in this area, as gamers are open to new experience, especially in this field. Does a segmented health bar affect a player's preference for a game? By Curtis Gittins and P. Christopher Glomo is a pilot study looking into the very idea of whether people would actually prefer different health mechanics over regenerating health in particular. Looking at the game Browser Quest, test subjects were made to play the game twice, once with a regenerative health bar, and the other with a limb-based health system. It was found that test subjects overwhelmingly enjoy the limb-based system, even though there were negative aspects if they lost enough health, such as if they lost health to the legs they could lose movement speed. Though there were only 32 people in this study, this at least indicates that there is potential in different health systems to be explored.
Intro Attackout states, the best way to figure out how well your health system is designed to encourage gameplay is to look at the most extreme situation. The player is low on health and there are multiple strong enemies around. What does the player do? This is what led us to our question of how we can use our system of recharging health to keep the player engaged. When we look at COD and Uncharted, what happens? The player ducks for cover, the screen normalizes, then they start the combat again. The player stops playing the game so they can continue playing the game.
Introducing Doom Eternal, published by Bethesda Softworks in 2020, considered an innovation into the way we look at health systems in games. Doom is a game where you play as the Doomslayer, a man so angry that even the denizens of heaven and hell fear him. And the health mechanics reflect this. Regular kills give you loot on the ground that include health, armor, ammo, and boosts. But they also give you a glory kill option, which by stunning or lowering the health of an enemy, you can start a glory kill that performs an animation of you brutalizing an enemy. And when it's finished, the game prioritizes health pickups in the supply drops, bringing your health up so you can engage the next wave. This is an amazing way of keeping you in line story-wise and gameplay-wise, to make you feel like the Doomslayer. The animation before getting health makes you feel like a Slayer. The health makes brutalizing the enemy feel beneficial and promotes you doing it. The health orbs being sprayed out is not only a way for us to be reinvigorated, but narratively, the Doomslayer could see it that way as well. All of this goes together perfectly to portray narratively and gameplay-wise that you, the player, are the Doomslayer.
There's a number of decisions that should be made regarding health systems and how they are used in a video game. Well, one of these is the idea of immersion and how the player interacts with the story by the use of the health system. A good example of this is a game such as Vampire, published by Focus Home Interactive in 2018. The game is based on being a vampire, and while the vampiric ability of biting someone doesn't directly heal you, it acts as a mana bar, allowing you to use your vampiric powers to heal yourself, closing your wounds much as a vampire would in a movie. This changes the way a player might want to approach a combat situation, especially if they are low on both health and blood. Combat decisions will be altered due to the situation. Borderlands 3, published by 2K Games in 2019, takes a different approach to healing, but it has an effect on how you approach combat situations. The game uses a two-stage health bar, similar to what was first introduced in Halo Combat Evolved, published by Microsoft Game Studios in 2001, where the player first has a regenerative health bar as a shield. Then, once this is depleted, a standard health bar which requires the use of item pickups to recharge, such as medkits. Where Borderlands 3 has expanded on the original design is by giving the shield different abilities which will alter the flow of combat, all in the name of increasing the enjoyment of combat in this looter shooter. Shields not only have varying rates of recharge, delay and speed, but they also provide boosts to different weapons or even melee, provide an extra forward shield when crouching, or even explode when they are empty to damage nearby enemies. All of this changes how a player will approach any given combat. but also allows the developer to know that once they clear a specific encounter, they won't die instantly since their shields will be full again by the next encounter, even if their health bar is not. Bloodborne, published by Sony Computer Entertainment in 2015, takes a slightly different approach to these games. In the article Getting Up Close with Bloodborne by Keezer McDonald on Kotaku, they talk about how Miyazaki, the director of Bloodborne, viewed the health bar as actually being a player's mental health. As they lose health, they are going into despair. But the regain health mechanic, where once you take damage there is a short window to regain your health back by dealing damage to the enemy, is the player keeping their nerve and striking back once caught off guard. It was added to enliven combat and encourage the player to be aggressive, a different way of fighting from other Souls games.
So considering all of this, how can health recharging be used to keep a player engaged in a video game? Based on our research and experience, we can see that there are a number of ways that we can use health and the recharging health mechanic to keep a player engaged with what is happening in both combat and story. Clearly, attaching the health recharge mechanic to a story element immerses the player further into the story while giving them an understanding of why and how the health recharge mechanic is working. Directly linking the recharge mechanic to more active gameplay promotes the player staying engaged in combat and not seeking to disengage to be able to bring their health back up. Giving the player options when it comes to recharging health can also promote an alternate playstyle from them. There's not only one right way to play. Overall, there appear to be a number of ways in which we can use the recharging health mechanic to engage the player that we can attempt to put into practice for future development. After looking all of this through, it is still clear that we don't know everything.
Increasing the pool of games we've played, which engage in different health systems, is a start.
There's many games out there mentioned in the articles that we read that we haven't played, and some we never even heard of before.
We also don't know why developers choose specific systems for their games.
But we can find out by reading design documentation on games, or trying to meet with developers and just asking them straight. Not easy things to do, but not impossible.